So this is the room.
Living in a box. Ian filmed this in his London hostel last year. He's since moved to a different hostel, but his room is much the same size.
Pretty much it's just being in a room, a square room for 24 hours a day. It just affects your mental health, you know. And I know that it's like this for everyone. Everyone is struggling, I get that.
The window does not shut.
Ian has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he attempted to take his life over Christmas. Things had been improving, but then came lockdown. The hostel has closed the TV room, so the 19 residents can't congregate, leaving them trapped in their rooms.
Obviously, living in a hostel, in a room with nothing to do, that's not helping, because you just got time to think, and you're just, and then it's at the point where you're thinking like about 10,000 different things all at the same time. You can't, you know, and it drives you crazy. It literally drives you crazy.
Even in normal times, 1 in 4 people experience a mental health problem every year. And the charity SANE warns that in lockdown conditions, more trouble is brewing.
Our concern is that while the mental health services are really being withdrawn a great deal, while people are afraid to access any help because they're taking the time away from the NHS, they're going to have untreated mental illness. And with untreated mental illness, we may be facing a backlash, an epidemic of mental illness.
SANE has a helpline and says there's been a notable spike relating to domestic abuse. That's also a concern for the Help Hub, a free service set up by professional therapists to help deal with problems created by the coronavirus.
Any mental health issues that people have, I think, will potentially be quite amplified during this time of isolation. And then obviously we have the inevitable loss and grief that is becoming more and more apparent on a daily basis. Then obviously you've got the isolation and loneliness, and domestic abuse is also another issue that's becoming more apparent.
So I was speaking to my therapist earlier this week.
How was that?
Yeah, it was good.
Another problem is addiction. 28-year-old Ben Robinson is among 75,000 people who were treated for alcohol addiction in England last year. He's been dry for 500 days, but lockdown is the biggest challenge yet.
It's a daily battle for me. Isolation just brings thoughts and fears, anxiety and worry. Isolation is something that we did a lot in the worst of our days. So I drank the most when I was on my own. And so isolation is simply echoing those thoughts.
So what are your mechanisms to help you get through the day?
Write notes down so you don't forget what you can tell other people when you speak to them, because those times are farther apart now. Each day I try to find a repetitive task. That might be a jigsaw, it could be restoring an antique box that I just did, and you'll find that that does help. By just going to that every couple of hours, it will help whitter through the day. And unfortunately, that's how I see the days, is just getting through them every day.
The Samaritans have launched a study into the impact of social distancing on our mental well-being. But indicators are isolation is a real challenge and is quietly storing up problems in our communities. Jason Farrell, Sky News.